We're looking back at the Formula One season for 2015 with James Allen and Dominic Harlow, former chief engineer with Force India and Williams. Now, what's next for the Enstone-based team? The Lotus F1 team and Renault have a great relationship for pretty much the last 15 years, so it was the obvious fit. How good is this news for Lotus and for the sport, Dom?
I think it's great news for all concerned. Obviously for Lotus it secures their future. For Renault as well, I think they lost their direction a little bit as becoming an engine supplier only. No one really associated them with the the championships that they achieved with Red Bull, and now they've taken the plunge again and come back as a team, and perhaps they do need to reinvent themselves a bit as Renault with the va-va-voom of the times gone by.
Of the era, absolutely, yeah. James, how did Lotus come sixth in the standings with literally no money?
I have to say, Holly, this is one of the most astonishing things I've seen in my Formula One career, because I started out working with Brabham, and I know that when you don't have the money coming through, the performance goes down because you're not developing the car and everybody else is. And I've never seen a situation like this where without the money they still managed to compete, where to the point where Grosjean was regularly qualifying in the top 10 in the back half of the championship and got a podium in Spa. It's absolutely astonishing. I spoke to Alan Permain about it, the chief engineer, and he said basically it's about learning to make sure you get the most out of what you've got. It's a bit like the Wombles, really, making the most of the things that you find. So they just managed to do that, and it's deeply, deeply impressive.
The Enstone-based team won world championships as Renault in 2005 and 2006, but we've seen a lot of experienced people leave that team. Is there still a strong enough core to form the basis of a title-winning team?
The way I see this is it's a little bit like Brawn. Ross Brawn had to lay off quite a lot of people in the transition from Honda to Brawn. And then obviously they had to hire more people when it became Mercedes to build up to the level that they're at now. If you look at the engineers, the core group of engineers pretty much stayed the same through that period. And that's one of the reasons why Mercedes are so competitive now. They have lost some very good people in Enstone, but again, there is still a core of people there who are very, very good. And I see it being very similar to what happened to that team, Brawn into Mercedes now, where Renault are going to have to throw some money at it, hire some talented engineers like Dominic Harlow, some of his peers, to go in there and tool the operation up so that they can have a crack at winning races and championships in 2 to 3 years from now.
And what about the drivers? Well,
that's a really good question. You can't imagine Renault wanting to go too far into their new future with Jolyon Palmer and Pastor Maldonado. No disrespect to either of them, but that's not a strong driver lineup for the future. Obviously, the tempting thing is to wonder whether Fernando Alonso would want to go back there. He's still young enough to have a crack at that. Ron Dennis has said that he'll finish his career at McLaren, but we'll see about that. I don't think Alonso would go back. I think that's too much chopping and changing. But I'm sure that they would certainly at least make the phone call.
You can read more about that topic and more from the JA on F1 season review, available at the website.